Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Here is episode 2 of Gorgon Head, the Project Gorgon podcast. Today is our second episode, and we have on Plaximos. Some of you probably know him, but what's up, dude?
Going on? How's everyone doing? Um, just enjoying, just enjoying this amazing day and Project Gorgon. Can't complain.
So true, so true. So, yeah, just some background like we did in the first episode. Plaximos and I met and have been just chatting a lot in Discord and playing together, and just he's been teaching me a ton about the game. Even after all that, I still feel like I don't know what the fuck is going on because there's so much in this game. But cool, yeah. Let's get into it. We'll do some of the kind of general questions before we go to PG stuff. So, how many hours do you have logged in Project Gorgon so far? And since what year have you been playing?
I have roughly about 4,100 hours, I'd say, in Project Gorgon. I started in June of 2018, and I've been playing on and off for the last 4 years. Most of my time in Project Gorgon came uh, last year when COVID-19 was going on. I mean, it's still going on, but like when the
Hmm.
lockdowns and everything was going on, I logged most of my hours in Project Gorgon. But the reason I started playing Project Gorgon is actually I came from old school RuneScape. Old school
Okay.
RuneScape has like a sandbox system with a bunch of different skills that go to 99. It has PvP, PvE, tons of quests. And I just got burned out from playing old school RuneScape, so I was like, you know what, Project Gorgon has all these skills systems, that you can level up and do tons of stuff in. So I decided to just switch over to Project Gorgon, and when I started playing Project Gorgon, the population for Gorgon around that time was like 500 or 600 players because it was like a new game on Steam.
Hmm.
So I was playing when there was all sorts of tons of players in different zones and everything. But I just really loved the game and I really loved the community and I've just played on and off since.
Awesome. And so I think the community now is probably around half that, correct?
Yeah, the community now is a lot smaller than that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
Hmm.
the community back then was super dedicated years ago, and the community now is super dedicated. Um, I mean, I played this game in like different eras, so
Yeah.
I've seen all sorts of stuff.
Okay. Gotcha. So, prior to Project Gorgon, what other MMOs have you played? I know you mentioned you played a bunch of old school RuneScape, but did you touch any other games a bunch or not too much?
I touched World of Warcraft retail. I touched
Okay.
WoW Classic. I touched Lord of the Rings Online. I touched Wizard 101. I touched Age of Conan Unchained. I touched The Secret World. Um, I've touched Shroud of the Avatar. Touched Star Wars Galaxies. Um, really big fan of EverQuest.
Ooh, nice.
I got the original book and everything. And what's really cool is like I'm only 26 years old in real life, but like I found EverQuest when I was 23, when the
Hmm.
20th anniversary server of EverQuest came out, and I got really
Oh,
hooked to
okay.
that. And I was playing on like the time lock servers and everything. But I'm really big into EverQuest, both the time lock servers and P99. But I've just played all sorts of different kinds of MMOs, and I've I traditionally gravitate towards like the sandbox style MMOs. Like theme parks are okay. Like Star Wars: The Old Republic is a good game. It's great
Hmm.
with storytelling. But I've mainly liked sandbox style MMOs because I like to sort of come together as a community to really grow as a community. But I've also played PvP style MMOs too, such as uh, private servers on Warhammer Online: Age of Reckoning.
Okay.
So I've touched all sorts of different kinds of games.
Gotcha. Okay. And so besides MMOs, do you play any other genres? I know we've tried to play a couple shooters here and there, so shooters maybe?
Yeah, I play a lot of shooters, even though my PC can't handle it.
Oh
Um,
shit.
I play a lot of RPGs, a lot of adventure style games, a lot of point and click games like the old games from Sierra Online.
Okay.
I play a lot of MOBAs, um, a lot of platformers. I pretty much like every single genre of games except probably for like real time strategy games.
Okay. Yeah, real-time strategies, I think how I got into gaming a lot actually. I played a ton of Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 1. But yeah,
Yeah,
those are
I'm not
tough
gonna
games.
I'm not gonna lie. Warcraft 3 looks good, and so does StarCraft. And now that now that Microsoft owns Blizzard and Activision,
Hmm.
should be interesting to sort of see how that ties into Microsoft's lineup. But no, I think RTS games are really fun. I just need to find one that I can get myself immersed in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. So how would you compare Project Gorgon to, say, EverQuest, since it sounds like you put a lot of time into EverQuest? I know the population's a lot smaller, but in terms of like gameplay, combat mechanics, and stuff like that.
Um, I would say that EverQuest is an extremely brutal, hard, and challenging game, and I would say we don't have a lot of games in the modern day that could compare to EverQuest as far as the how hardcore it was with the corpse runs. You know, if you die, you have to go back and you have to go back to your body naked
Hmm.
to retrieve your loot. I mean, just the mechanics of EverQuest is a lot harder compared to anything we have. So anyone that's really played EverQuest, you know, I appreciate you for playing that because it's a great game. It's a hard game. It's a fun game. Project Gorgon is similar to EverQuest in the sense that even though the game is a lot different than EverQuest, you have to actually, you know, find real parties to take on hard dungeon events and
Hmm.
to to group together. The game's not as hard as EverQuest, but it has elements of EverQuest and other various games tied into it that make the game a very memorable experience and a very good experience. And I think it's
Okay.
okay for the I think it's okay for the game to be different, but the game has elements of EverQuest that EverQuest players will like. And as long as like you have like an open mind and you're okay with experiencing new mediums in Project Gorgon that Project Gorgon offers, but you also like elements of EverQuest. I think a lot of players from EverQuest and other games will really like Project Gorgon and what it has to offer.
Okay. And is it a little more similar to old school RuneScape than Project Gorgon? EverQuest, that is. Sorry.
Um, are you saying is EverQuest similar to old school
To old
RuneScape?
school
So
RuneScape, yeah.
now EverQuest is a lot drastically different than old school RuneScape. EverQuest is all about the different class dynamics and how the classes can sort of come together to go through the content in order to get to in game to do the raids
Hmm.
in the dungeons and everything. EverQuest actually, surprisingly, EverQuest doesn't have a lot of quests, so it's sort of ironic. EverQuest is not about quests. Old school RuneScape has tons of quests. It has PvP, you know, it has PvE style stuff. It
Hmm.
has all these skills that you can level. But EverQuest is more about the classes and how the different classes come together in order to progress.
Okay.
So they're two drastically different games, but the similarities between Project Gorgon and EverQuest would be that the classes in Project Gorgon, the different classes that you make, they do matter when you go to the end game dungeons,
Okay.
um, because you need the different mechanics of the tank and the healer and the DPS in order to come together in order to get through the dungeons. So class system does matter in Project Gorgon, and that's how it's sort of linked with EverQuest. But EverQuest is just different um, because it's just an older experience, and it's not based on quests or anything. It's just based on what it's really based on is the community coming together with their different classes in order to progress through content. And Gorgon has that, but
Hmm.
EverQuest is drastically different than old school RuneScape. It's not on the same comparison.
Gotcha. Okay. So as far as like the dev team, have you had any interaction with them and good, bad?
Um, You know, I've talked to Saiton on the official Project Gorgon Discord before.
Hmm.
You know, he's a great guy. You know, he will go and answer questions and participate on the Discord on the official Discord with players. I've unfortunately never talked to his wife for Project Gorgon,
Okay.
but I've talked to Jack and I've talked to Lemons that work on the team for Project Gorgon,
Hmm.
the game moderators. I've talked to them, and I so yeah, I, that's about the extent that I've immersed myself.
Gotcha. Okay. So, cool. Let's go ahead and get into the Project Gorgon questions then. So, is there anything, or what would you say is the most interesting thing that you've experienced, whether it be a weapon or one of the trade skills or one of the other skills or anything like that?
The most interesting thing to me in Project Gorgon is figuring out that different class combinations can go together, or figuring out that it's possible to do certain things in Project Gorgon. And this is what I mean by that. When
Hmm.
I first started Project Gorgon, I started with animal handling and I started with fire magic. I got both of those to 50, and as soon as I got both of those to 50, I was like, "You can play as animals in this game. This is amazing." And I thought and I thought to myself, I've never played as a spider, in an MMORPG ever, as a class or whatever. So I immediately went and played a spider, and then when I was when I was adventuring around in Project Gorgon, I found out about how you could be a druid, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Spider can go with druid. How does that work out? And at the time, like, there wasn't a lot of like information. Like, I didn't know like how you could be spider and also be druid. But then eventually I stumbled across this belt, and it was like a special belt in game where if I equipped it, I could be druid and I also could be spider, but I needed that belt on in order to access those two skills together simultaneously. And
Gotcha.
as soon as I stumbled across the belt, I was like, wow, I can be spider and I can be druid. And then what was really interesting is when I ended up getting druid to 50, I found out I could, I could be, I could go into bird form and I could fly and everything. But what I didn't know is I didn't know that I could be spider and druid walking around, and I could put that bird form on my sidebar, and then when I hit the sidebar ability, I'll turn into a bird and I can fly anywhere in Serbial. And then if I hit it again on the sidebar, I go back into my spider ability. And I was just like, man, this is so cool how you can just like do stuff like this. And then also because I'm a druid, I can put the deer bar ability on my sidebar, and I can hit that and I can go into deer form. And if I have like a loadout for deer, I can also be a I can use my deer combat, and then I can switch back to my spider combat, and then I can go into bird form. So just like those mechanics, figuring out like what goes together,
Hmm.
how you build your character, how all the different 150 skills in the game, like how they can, help you, how they can hurt you. I just really love that sense of skill building and that sense of role play, and that's one of the reasons why I think if you really like old school RuneScape and you really like the old like grouping that you had to do in like EverQuest, I think you'll really like Project Gorgon because skills is everything in this game, and skills is what makes up like all the content. Because the only reason I have so many hours in the Project Gorgon is because there's so many skills that go to level 80, and it takes a while to hit that in so many skills. So if you really love skill building, you're creative, you like to put different things together to create different builds, you like the role play, and you like to actually form groups to go through the content, Project Gorgon is your game.
Definitely. And yeah, that's something that we talk about a ton is just there are so many things that people haven't even discovered and the game's been out for 8, 10, 8 years maybe? I think it's around 8, right?
The
Even
game's been
prior
out.
to Steam.
Yeah, the game's been out for since like 2000, and like it's been playable since like 2014. And actually, if you go on the Project Gorgon wiki, and you go to the update page, you can look at every single update that's been made to Project Gorgon, and it
Mhm.
goes all the way back to 2014 when he's just sort of conceptually talking about this game. And what's really cool about Project Gorgon is the ideas that he talks about like over 10 years ago he eventually put into the game. So like everything he talks about that he's actually going to do, he actually follows through with it and puts it into the game, even though it might take like a few months or a year or vice versa.
Yeah, that is just insane. And I know that the wiki was kind of fleshed out over a long period of time, but the fact that there's still stuff that's not in the wiki that people are finding out, that yeah, that's I think that's the thing that intrigues me the most about this game. The fact that in most MMOs, I think when you go in, you pick kind of your cookie cutter class, and then once you hit your cap, there are hundreds of other people who have the same level, probably the same gear as you, and I think the most appealing thing to me also about this game is the fact that, like we talked about the other day, if you hit 85 in two weapons, there might be only a couple other people on the whole server that have that same similar build. So just insane to me, the
Yeah,
diversity.
yeah, it's just amazing. Like you could have the same skills as somebody, like you were saying, and you might have like a different build, but like think about the sidebar abilities. Like for example, like you could be like you could be like fire magic and shield. The other guy could be fire magic and shield, but you might have one up on him because maybe you picked up the crossbar abilities and you put them all on your sidebar. And now you have all the crossbar abilities on your sidebar. So I mean, like the game is just crazy because there's so many miscellaneous skills that could be put on the sidebar
Yeah.
where you could totally just enhance your character. And that's amazing. And real quick, I just want to point out there's been tons of people that have contributed to the wiki in this community.
Hmm.
Um, but there's two like main people that consistently like add stuff to the wiki on a daily basis, and that would be Ranzel in game and Beta Notice. They're all, if you like look at the wiki changes, they're always adding stuff in the game like every single day. The wiki's been compressed of a bunch of players over a bunch of years, but
Hmm.
those two players in particular, they're always adding stuff to the wiki every day, and there's still stuff we don't know about this game, and that's why the game's great game.
Yeah. And I didn't know until a couple of days ago. I think they're just constantly adding things. Do they put every single thing that they add in the patch notes, or do they leave it kind of up for discovery for the players later?
I mean, they leave it up for discovery. When I watched the previous episode and I heard McCringleberry talking about the Dino Cat,
Hmm.
they put they in the patch notes they said that paleontology was added to Povus, which is the level 75 to 85 area.
Hmm.
So we knew the skill was there, and if you go, you need necromancy at 50 in order to lock the skill. But if you go and you unlock that skill, you can put dinosaur bones together to summon a dinosaur cat. But they didn't tell us in the patch notes that if an animal player comes along, that animal player can tame that particular cat. So a lot of times they just put stuff in the patch notes, and it's up to us as the players to discover that. But they don't hold our hands or anything or tell us that, oh yeah, you could tame that dino cat if you're an animal player.
Yeah.
So
That's so crazy. And so that just makes me think that of all the things that people haven't by coincidence found out yet. There are probably so many things out there that are still up for discovery. So I think that's really cool. Um, cool. Let's go to the next question. I asked McCringleberry, and he was known for his thigh rubs. Is there anything in game that you're known for as Plaximos?
Probably aside from helping out thousands of, well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of players
Hmm.
doing, cerebral crypt runs to unlock necromancy, because you typically need like a higher level player to help you with that. But what I'm mainly known for is my guild, Animal Town X Force. In Project Gorgon, uh, in Project Gorgon, uh, my guild typically has like one of the most like animal players in game. We have tons of animal players, and my guild, Animal Town X Force. I'm just aside from me going around helping the community through dungeon runs and various other things. I'm pretty much known as that rabbit that's going around, as an ice magic electricity wizard that's recruiting people for my animal style guild, Animal Town X Force. I mean, we have players in the guild that aren't animals, but for the most part, majority
Okay,
of people are animals. So if anyone's like watching this video and you want to join like an animal guild, Animal Town X Force, always looking for animals for Project Gorgon. But yeah, I'm mainly known for like being connected to that, being connected to running people through groups to unlock ice magic or necromancy.
gotcha.
Um, I'm always helping out people, and I'm always trying to provide guidance to the people that need it.
Awesome. The famous or infamous blue rabbit?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm typically a blue rabbit or I'm typically a spider.
Okay.
So I'm either a blue rabbit in game, or I'm a warlock spider that does poison dot damage.
That's awesome. So, since you deal with a lot of animal players, what would you think is the most played animal versus the least played?
The least played animal would probably have to be rabbit or giant bat, only because the mechanics for both rabbit and giant bat are harder to play. You're locked out of a lot of conversation with NPCs because for some reason a lot of NPCs don't like rabbits and they don't like giant bats. but they like the other animals more for some reason.
The giant
So it's
bat is understandable. I don't know why people would hate rabbits though.
a lot of people in this game pretty much play for the most part, a lot of people in this game pretty much play like cow, deer, or like pig, for the most part. And the reason why, I mean, cow, usually cow, deer, and pig, but like lately I've been seeing a lot of werewolves around, like lichens.
Mhm.
Um, but people pretty much don't really play like spider. They don't really play like giant bat. They don't really play like McCringle. I see McCringleberry playing a Spirit Fox, but a lot of people don't play Spirit Fox because that's more of like an advanced class. A lot
Okay.
of people don't play as a lot of people don't play as Spider. A lot of people don't play as Giant Bat Giant Bat and Rabbit are typically played by like veteran players. Giant Bat is really good, but you need all the Giant Bat books that only drop during Halloween. So if you're not playing, so if you're playing during other months,
Okay.
um, Giant Bat's not as strong as it typically would be if you collected all the Halloween books during October.
Interesting.
Um, and I should mention real quick here that Spider has an ability called Illusion,
Mhm.
that you get from the strange spider behind the Rhino boss in the Serbial Crypt dungeon. That gives an illusion. It gives a skill book there that teaches you illusion, and it uses a moonstone where you can transform into a female humanoid, and you can talk to any NPC. And that cooldown is 15 minutes and can go on your sidebar. So that that's convenient if you want to play as Spider. And Spirit Fox has the same similar kind of ability. The cooldown's an hour, but you can transform yourself into sort of like a humanoid, and you can talk to any NPC. So playing a Spirit Fox and Spider is not really a hindrance to the player, but playing as Giant Bat and Rabbit, you're locked out of a lot of NPC interactions. But the good thing is, if you've unlocked the casino,
Mhm.
you can have all the storage in the casino and Rahu. And there's also like an animal town, sort of like Serbial, that's in Sunvale, that my guild is named after, where you have a bunch of storage there if you're an animal player. So it's pretty convenient.
Okay. And can the animals use all the same storage if you have the favor unlocks for the NPCs, for instance, in the casino and stuff like that?
Yeah, the animals can use all the regular same storage, assuming that you can talk to the NPC.
Gotcha. So you may have so if you want to access it sometimes you probably have to use your hotbar skill to transform. Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems like it could get pretty annoying if you're
and
having to transform a bunch.
pigs, cows, pigs and cows can get like a special hat. You can either get it if you're in a guild and you do guild quests, you can trade in your guild credits to get a hat.
Mhm.
Or if you're a warden, which is like a special cult of animals that ride on storm clouds and shoot electricity. There's a store in the warden like sanctuary that sells these hats. But anyways, like the hats, if you put the hat on, it allows you to talk to different NPCs that you normally wouldn't be able to talk to if you're a pig, a cow, or a deer. So it's pretty convenient if you want to get around certain NPC dialogue or conversation if you're those particular animals.
Okay, that makes sense. That's super helpful if you can't use your transformations or limited with them at least.
Yeah,
Um
I just want to mention real quick here that
mhm.
for people watching this video, um, Animal Town is like Serbial sorta. It's like a smaller version of like Serbial. It's like a little town for like animals where they
Mhm.
have storage, and they also have a vendor for animals to sell. When you go to if Animal Town is in Sunvale, which is the island, the tropical island, you access it by going to the boats by Serbial. You'll to take you to the island. Well, anyways, Animal Town on the Sunvale Island, you have to be an animal. You have to be in animal form for 3 hours to access the island. But anyways, if you go there with carrots and you go to the rabbit trainer and you gift the rabbit trainer carrots. People don't know this. It's not on the wiki.
Mhm.
But if you give the rabbit trainer carrots, the rabbit trainer will give you a slave teleportation collar. It's an item. And they'll also teach you an ability called teleport to Animal Town. And you can put that on your sidebar and you can use it every you can use it. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure it's every hour or every 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
But you just equip the item, you hit the sidebar ability, and it will teleport you to Animal Town. And it makes it super convenient if you want to go to Animal Town and access your storage as an animal or so.
Okay. But you mentioned you can only get to that town if you're one of the animals currently?
You have to be an animal in general in order to access the town.
Okay. Oh shit.
It's only for animals, and there's like these giant scorpions that have like 4,000 or 5,000 health, in armor and everything that protect Animal Town. So if you're like a low level player or a mid level player, you won't be able to access it. If you're a high level player, you could kill the scorpions and I guess go in. But like for the most part, it's only meant for animal players. Like the NPCs there won't talk to you unless you're animal.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So I know you mentioned that your current build, you're playing Rabbit and Necromancy, you said?
So I'm not actually using the rabbit skills, and
Okay.
the reason I'm not using the rabbit skills is because I found the rabbit skills to be a little squishy. Now there
Hmm.
is a player in the game that plays with hardcore. It's a female player named Milk. She uses rabbit and ice magic, and she makes it work. But for some reason, I've never been able to make it work because I just I don't. It's not that I can't make it work. It's just that I don't really like the rabbit skills. So what I've done is I'm in rabbit form, but I'm using ice magic and I'm using Warden, which is electricity dot over time. So
Okay.
basically, the rabbit is the only animal form that can use ice magic, and I have ice magic all the way to 74, and I have all the spells for level 70, and all the spells researched. So I'm in rabbit form using ice magic, using the ice shield to protect myself, and using the ice to do AOE damage. And then I'm also using Warden, which is electricity dot over time, and I put the two together. So I'm doing ice magic AOE, and I'm also doing electricity dot damage over time.
Gotcha. Okay. And is Rabbit in general pretty squishy, or was it just the actual Rabbit abilities that aren't super defensive? Because I know Ice Magic, there are some kind of ice barrier skills, right, that make it pretty tanky as well.
The ice magic skill in general, like fire magic, generates a lot of rage.
Hmm.
Fire magic is super strong AOE wise, but ice magic is super strong too. And it actually, when I've played with ice magic, the ice shield that comes up and protects you actually keeps you alive. It's actually kept me alive in a lot of higher level 70 and level 80 dungeons because like I have a mod on it where the ice shield won't melt, so it can protect me against various things, various kinds of damage.
Okay.
But ice magic in general is strong, but I tried playing around with the rabbit abilities, like rabbit as a combat skill,
Hmm.
and I think it needs buffed in certain places. And like I said, there's a player in the game named Milk, and she can do it awesomely. I mean, I've seen her go into level 80 dungeons and actually do the most damage with the rabbit skill. So like there is damage there if you have the right mods and the right equipment and everything. It's just that it's such a learning curve in order to try to make it work that I wouldn't recommend it to like a beginner player.
Okay. So as far as like the higher level players that are doing the end game content, do they mostly just play one build, or do they have multiple builds that are 80 at this point?
They have like multiple builds that they roll, depending on the various roles that they do.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and a lot of them, of course, have like their speed builds, gear just to get around to different places. But depending on, I mean, there's a lot of players that have different builds for tanking, healing, DPS, whatever the group needs. So it's pretty common for higher level players to go in with like two sets of gear to switch to tank for this one boss, and then switch to DPS for like another boss.
Oh shit. So when you're rolling around like between level 70 and 80, what's your inventory space looking like? Like is it because if you have you must have to have like maybe 3 to 4 complete sets of gear if you're swapping between different builds like that?
Yeah, so the inventory for the most part, well, see, I don't know. I have like um, I don't know. You might have like 80, 90 slots of inventory space,
Okay.
just to carry the two sets of gear, the three sets of gear, and then also to get loot if you're going through dungeons. A lot of these players,
Hmm.
though, the ones that are like high level, um, I mean, VIP isn't necessary, but I mean, if you're going through these higher level dungeons, where there's all this loot, a lot of us do actually have VIP, so we can put more stuff into our inventory.
Okay.
Um, but typically, I don't know. Typically, it's expected for a lot of these higher level players to take like two sets of gear with them, and then there's other people who have like three sets or even four sets, depending on like how many different skill loadouts you want to do in these particular dungeons. I mean, the level 80 dungeon in the fairy realm, Wintertide, it's super long. Um, ads have like 40, 50,000 health. The boss has close to like half a million. So you have to actually have different loadouts for different situations. There's actually a
Mhm.
boss in the Wintertide dungeon that's a darkness boss, and he's immune to certain abilities. And I think like he's immune to every ability except I think for like electricity, psychology, and like I think like another skill. And like if you don't have anyone in your party that's doing those three skills, you don't do any damage to the boss.
Jesus. So yeah, so people, I mean, it's almost a hindrance to only have one build, I guess you could say, because if, yeah, are there a lot of dungeons like that that have a lot of immunities, or is it specifically that Wintertide dungeon?
Um, no, there's other examples like that in particular areas in some dungeons, but there's few examples like that.
Hmm.
Um, but like as time goes on, Citan seems like there's gonna be. It seems like from Citan there's gonna be more examples of that.
Okay.
But um, but the content is still hard. I mean, like if you're playing Project Gorgon right now, you may realize in a lot of the lower level dungeons it might be like a Zerg fest where content seems really easy, and it's not like EverQuest where EverQuest was really hard and it was challenging and everything. But when you get to higher level content in Project Gorgon, if you don't have a tank, shout out to Brakor, Amrit, the best tanks in the game. If you don't have a healer, shout out to Kaskrim, Fennel, Laramis. Um, and if you don't have DPS, shout out to Molan the werewolf. If you don't have like all the elements together for this like
Hmm.
55, 65, 75, 85 dungeons or zones or areas, um, you won't accomplish anything. You'll get wiped real fast, and like so, like the mechanics and the Trinity and everything, it does matter in in game areas.
Okay. So, um, between DPS, tank, and healer, do you think that it's similar to other MMOs where there are a ton less healer and tank?
In Project Gorgon, probably like majority of the server is like DPS, and then like there's like a few people that are like tanks that are like really well known that like groups want, and then there's like a few people that are healers. I know Kaskram, who typically plays as Bard or Priest, is like one of the best healers on the server,
Okay.
and she has like a Discord that's specifically meant to sort of teach you the ropes for like in-game level, higher level dungeons, as far as how to get the most DPS, how to heal effectively, how to tank effectively. So that's a Discord I'd recommend people to
Okay.
check out. You have to get a hold of Castrum in order to get access to that Discord, but it's just a really good way to like learn in game. But yeah, there's very few tanks in this game, and there's very few healers. So if you're like
Okay.
trying to specialize as a tank or specialize as a healer, and you make it to end game, you'll be real viable.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah, Casgrim is on my list to hunt down to join us on the podcast one episode. So hopefully we'll see her in the future. That'd be a good one. Cool. So next question. Which map or zone or even dungeon aesthetically do you think looks the coolest? Maybe both. Maybe a specific map and a dungeon.
I think the dungeon that probably looks the coolest, in my opinion, would have to be the level 80 fairy wintertide dungeon. And the reason why that looks really cool aesthetically is because it's sort of like it sort of has like this disco kind of like vibe and kind of like colors and everything. You feel like you're at like a 19 like 60s or 70s like disco club when you're going through the dungeon, because there's all these like bright colors, and it looks like you're like in an alien like spaceship or some shit,
Okay,
you know?
that's the one that you showed me a while ago, right? I was like, oh no, we were chatting in Discord the other day, and my buddy joined us, and he saw a screenshot of that dungeon, I think. Do you remember that? And he said, that doesn't look like Project Gorgon, but it ended up being that 80 level dungeon. So yeah, the spaceship reminded me of it for sure.
And and then um, and then as far as like coolest level area that I particularly like, I would probably have to say like the new area that they added in, the new like 75 to 85 area. It's basically like an area for players to solo or to do grouping. It's called Povis. It's just basically like a giant swamp infested area, and there's like poison. You know, there's extreme poison damage and everything. But what's really cool about Povis is Povis has like this mechanic in the game where if you've ever played like 7 Days to Die and you have to like defend the town from like zombie attacks or whatever, there's a town in Povis like Serbial where there's trainers and storage and stores and everything. And the town has like a level. It starts off at level 1 and
Hmm.
goes all the way up to level 10. And the higher that the town level goes from you defeating high level hordes of monsters, the more different kinds of NPCs come to the town for different skills and stuff to sort of enhance the town. And there constantly has to be like high level players in this town, like every few nights, in order to make sure the town ranking keeps going up and that the town ranking stays steady. Because if the town ranking dips down, um, everyone loses access to all those trainers and all those NPCs and all that storage and everything. So the mechanic that they have in play in Povis in this swamp of you like protecting this like infected town from monsters. It's just a cool mechanic and a cool concept. And Povis is a really good area that I recommend everyone check out if you're level 75 or you're level 85. Not only and it also has like a mushroom infected fungal dungeon with like hobgoblins and stuff too. That's not now the highest dungeon in the game, and that's also cool. But Povis in general, it's just a really good place for high level players aside from the fairy realm. But if we're talking about like low level places, um, one of the great places for like low level players I would say is like Sunvale. It's like a tropical island. There's a bunch of ogres on the island, a bunch of different monsters you can fight. If you're really into fishing, there's lots of spots there to catch all sorts of different kinds of tropical fish. That's where the druids are. That's where that animal town is. It's just a very like mysterious like island. And if you're like a role player and you like to explore and discover like new things, Sunvale is a really good place to be. It's a level 30 to 45 area.
Okay, I think that's the area that's just after Eltabule, right?
So the area after Altabule would be the Kerr Mountains.
Okay.
That's the frost zone. That's the zone where you need to have like cold gear in order to survive, or you take like cold damage.
Hmm.
The zone that I'm talking about is the same level as Kerr is, which is after Altabule. But in order to access this zone, you take the boats from Serbia at the docks, and it will take you to an island, which is like this big continent,
Okay.
and you can explore like this tropical island. But what's really cool that I didn't actually realize until the other day is that there's tons of dungeons on this island, on like other islands that are underwater. And
What?
if you swim underwater on these other islands, you can go into these like dungeons. And they've been there for like the longest time, but I guess I just never paid attention to it until the other day.
It has like
And
the portals that like the ones that lead to the sewer in Serbia, right? Those kind of portals underwater?
yeah, it has those
Okay.
kind of portals underwater. But what's really crazy is like when you get to Sunvale, it's like this island, and you just think it's just this island or whatever that you explore. But no, like if you swim off into the water, there's other islands like in the water, and if you go to the bottom, there's dungeons down there, and you can just like solo, sort of like the mushroom dungeon. Like you can just sort of
Okay.
have fun and solo down there. So it's cool because that stuff's always been in the game for like the longest time. Like it's been in the game for the longest time, but it's like I didn't know it existed because I wasn't exploring out in the water, swimming to the bottom.
Yeah, that's a trip. Just more stuff that people haven't found yet, probably. And because I don't think is that in the wiki as well? The dungeons, does it show the dungeons that are on the other islands in the wiki?
It's on the wiki. It's on the wiki, but
Okay.
here's the thing. It's on the wiki, but here's the thing. A lot of people are so used to doing like the quad tick dailies for the casino dailies or even the harder level casino dailies. So a lot of these other dungeons don't really get the recognition or the fame. And a lot of them are just sort of like hidden. They're sort of there for you to discover. So like I just want to tell everyone right now that there's a lot of dungeons in this game. Um, but a lot of them people don't talk about. So have fun, discover them, and live your role playing heart out.
Yes, we will, hopefully. Um, so let's go to kind of like the maybe like patch and adding and removing stuff type questions. If you could add a combat class or an animal or a weapon or even a other or trade skill, what would you like to see?
Well, over on Discord, on the official Discord, sometimes they have blogs where they have posts where they ask the Discord like people will submit a question on the official Discord, and the highest rated question will get answered by the developer, and then it'll get posted in the blog. And
Okay.
over the summer, they had two blogs. One was released in June, and the other one was released in July, in which people should totally check out because it tells you like future content that's going to be added to the game. Well, anyways, Saitan mentions on there that when the dwarf race gets added, that axe will be added as a combat skill
Oh, that's
to use
awesome.
like an axe. And he also mentions on that blog post that vampirism will be a combat skill in the future. It'll be a sub skill of necromancy, meaning you need 50 necromancy in order to unlock vampirism. But a lot of like I don't know. I'd like to probably see like vampirism probably like added in the game. I think it'd be cool if Titan introduced some sort of like mechanic where you had to feed on certain NPCs in order to get more stronger as like a vampire,
Yeah.
and you couldn't like go out like during like the daytime, so you had to be sort of like hidden during the daytime, but if you were out at nighttime, maybe you got more of like a buff.
hmm
And I just think it'd be cool if like vampirism was added, because vampirism is going to be different than giant bat.
Yeah.
Giant bat, you're just a giant bat. Vampirism, you're actually a vampire. But
I guess technically you could use giant bat the skill tree with vampirism too if they were to bring it out. I think that would be pretty crazy.
yeah. That'd be really cool. I really wish I really like playing as the animals, and I really wish that we would get more animal style items. That way, animals could like use like other skills that maybe animals typically can't use right now. Like for example, like the rabbit can use ice magic. I think it'd be
hmm
cool maybe if they made a belt for like giant bats that giant bats could wear, where a giant bat could be like a druid too or something.
hmm
I think it'd be cool if we had a little bit more items where we could maybe use other skills we wouldn't typically be able to use. But I'd like to see like another animal. I suggested on Discord one time that I think they should add like the hippopotamus or like a turtle or something, maybe with like or just some sort of like tanky animal class that could be in addition to the cow.
hmm
Um, I but as far as I don't know, like as far as other classes go, I don't really have an idea for other classes, but I have an idea for like other zones. I think it'd be really
Okay.
cool if they added maybe like an underwater city, or maybe they added like a city in the sky or something. Like I think it'd be cool to like have some sort, or maybe like an undead city or something. Like I know Serbia they have the crypts and everything, but it'd be cool if there was like maybe like a zone where everything was just sort of like undead and like decrepit.
That would be
Um,
really cool.
but
Yeah, I like the idea for the underwater zone as well. I've always been, and it's cool because then you wouldn't be able to use fire magic. You could potentially a turtle or like a hippopotamus, like you mentioned, that they would have obvious, or I would hope or assume that they would have buffs for underwater, etc., stuff like that. Maybe be able to
yeah,
hold their breath a little longer.
and I just think like the content in in game is really like it's hard and difficult, and you have to work with people in order to accomplish things. And a lot of the veteran players, they've been through it so many times, so they know how to like navigate through certain areas and stuff. But I wish that there was more challenging content for like lower level players, because I feel like there's a lot of content for lower level players, but I wish there were more like harder like dungeon mechanics or complex puzzles for like lower level players. And I mean, and there's already stuff in game for lower level players as is hard. But I guess what I'm saying is a lot of the higher level stuff. Sometimes there's like a complex like puzzle, like in Rahu Sewers, a level 55 dungeon. Everyone has to like um, go so far out in this like deep dungeon and like oil a switch, and everyone has to hit the switch at the same time in order
hmm
for a boss monster to spawn. I would love to see like more puzzles like that in like the lower level areas where people could incorporate and stuff like that, and they don't necessarily have to get to level 55 to incorporate that.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I think there's one kind of similar was it in the Goblin dungeon maybe? Like the crystals that you have to kill in a certain time period. Yeah, I think those
Yeah,
mechanics are really cool in dungeons for sure. That would be
yeah,
awesome
and
to
I
see.
yeah, and I think like anyone watching this video, I think like the Goblin dungeon is a great dungeon as far as like boss fights go for lower level players. Like fighting again. I'm not going to spoil it, but like fighting against the boss in either the green dungeon or the purple side, like it's just a great challenge for like low level players. It's a great discovery for you to figure out. Like I'm not going to spoil it, no spoilers, but there needs to be more challenges like that that really like test players and really like test people. I think there's challenges already, but there needs to be real harder sort of like more complicated stuff like that where like if you like die to a boss, like something major happens to you,
Hmm.
and people have to like know like, hey, like maybe we should like have the right party before we take this particular boss on because we could potentially get like messed up here and
Yeah.
like and end up with something real serious.
So, something related to that, do you think, although the community is great and everyone is always willing to help each other, do you think that kind of becomes a problem in that aspect because there are always people there to help lower level players? Because from my experience and from a couple people that I've spoken to, the reason that a lot of the lore content maybe seems a bit easier is because so many higher level players are so willing to help out on lower level stuff.
I think the community is both good and bad. The community is great because they're there to help you with Project Gorgon. They're there to
Hmm.
like give you answers that you need because this game's deep. It has 150 skills. It has different stuff that you maybe you've experienced in other games, but maybe players haven't experienced because they're new to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the community is good as far as like questions, as far as getting help on different things and being and vice versa. But I feel like the community can be almost too good sometimes because in those like lower level dungeons where you want to really explore and really like feel the challenge and really like progress and really like have a good time and really like see the content for like what it is, when you have like a higher level player who's level 80 with like max gear wanting to help you run through that dungeon, you almost feel like the challenge is over, the difficulty is over, and it's
Hmm.
like night and day. So I do think the community is good in a lot of areas, but I feel like the community is bad in that particular area because I feel like a lot of these high level players that are level 80 with like the best gear on and everything, like helping these lower level players out. I feel like as a veteran player myself, I feel like a lot of that sort of needs to like not happen as much in the future. I feel like a lot of higher level players should sort of like let lower level players like explore and like do stuff on their own with other lower level players and really
Hmm.
feel that challenge. And I feel like by getting helped out by some of these higher level players and some of these PvE experiences sort of almost like ruins the fun and the immersion at lower levels because the lower level players think, hey, like Project Gorgon's not a challenging game, it's not like a fun game, but it is actually really challenging and fun as you get up in higher levels. But if they sort of have that handheld in some of those dungeons at a lower level, it's sort of like will ruin the immersion for them. So I think the community is good, but I feel like the community needs to not necessarily help out so much in that particular area.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely a tough one because I feel like there's that line where people want to be so helpful because there are so many really genuine people that play this game. But yeah, it's a tough line because you want to tell people, yeah, I'm not gonna help you because I think it would be a good experience. Because in my experience, a lot of the content I've really been trying to go solo and take on things solo, and it's frustrating, but it's also fun knowing that I can die, and I do die a ton if you watch my stream. Um, but when you get taken through the dungeons, like you said, even if people are quote unquote holding back or they maybe are leveling lower skills, even if they're 10 levels above the dungeon and they can kill stuff super quickly, I think I agree it does take a lot of the fun out, and then you yourself get a ton of good gear for a higher level, and then you're not really looking for that solo grind to get your own gear. I feel like, at least right now, I've done a lot of the dailies just to get some money, and I have a ton of gear already for level 50. And then it kind of makes it more exciting to grind to 50 to get that gear, but it's also like once I get there, I just have everything and I don't have to really work for it, if that makes sense.
one thing that's sort of key to note here is that there's so many different. There's like 28 different like combat skills in the game,
Hmm.
including the animal skills that you can pretty much mix and match with each other to create a build. And all these different combat skills all function differently in terms
Hmm.
of combat and in terms of what they do. So like even if you go through like a lower level dungeon with one skill, if you like went back to that lower level dungeon with another skill, you'd have a completely different experience because the skills that you're using and this is going to relate back to EverQuest, just like the skills you're using, sort of like the classes in EverQuest,
Hmm.
all these different builds do different things. You're going to have different experiences with these different builds. So even if you go through a lower level dungeon, you're like, man, like by this higher level player helping me out, totally ruined the experience for me. It didn't ruin the experience at all. It might have ruined that particular moment for you, in which I'd say maybe don't party up with a higher level player.
Hmm.
But it didn't. It shouldn't ruin the whole game for you because there's tons of different skills that can be put together for builds, and every skill in this game works way differently than any other skill. So like
True.
it's always going to be a fun experience going through the dungeon with different skills, and that's where the replay value lies. There's tons of skills, tons of builds. You may go to all the zones in Project Gorgon. You may do all the dungeons in Project Gorgon, but every dungeon and every zone is always going to be different depending on what skill builds you have together. This is a skill build game. So if
Yep.
you like skill builds, you'll like Project Gorgon. So like when
100%.
so when people tell me I've done everything in Project Gorgon, I'm like, well, have you done all 150 skills? Because if you haven't done 150 skills, you haven't done everything in Project Gorgon. Once again, it's a skill-based game. You can see everything in the game, but it's always going to be fun and it's always going to be different because there's so many different skills, there's so many different perspectives, different ways to play, and that's
Yeah.
what makes Gorgon a good game.
True that. True that. So on the flip side, do you think that there's anything in the game that just should not be there? Anything you think they should remove? Any mechanic or boss or dungeon? Anything?
I'm sure if you ask other people, there'd probably be tons of stuff that they tell them they want to remove. But in my opinion, I think this is a perfect game. Like I give this game a 10 out of 10. I um I have like a small like Steam curator page where I review and play different games, and I have this
Hmm.
game on there as a game that everyone should try. Honestly, I I think if they change the game, they should make the game a lot more difficult at higher levels. I mean, they should they should make mobs have more health, and they should, make maybe make monsters in certain areas have like more resistances. So you have to sort of like decide like like what combat skills do we need for this particular fight. I think they can make the game more challenging in that level, sort of like what I was saying earlier with the one boss that is immune to every single skill except for
Hmm.
like three different skills. So maybe if they could maybe if they could like sort of like to take the training wheels off and some of the mid level zones and like give bosses like more resistance to certain skills, so you really have to like figure out like, hey, like um
This is going to be
what do
pretty
I
prevalent later.
yeah, I don't think it should happen in lower levels, but I think in like the mid levels it should happen to sort of give players like a taste, like, hey, this is what you can expect at a high level. Like you
Okay.
really have to like prioritize what skills you have, and you really have to like, build the right character in order to handle certain situations.
Gotcha. Okay. And kind of on the same page, are there any bugs you've come across or anything that you think they need to, I guess, fix before they launch? Because I mean, it's set for quarter four of this year, right? Technically.
Yeah, I mean, aside from them, like I think me personally, I think the graphics are okay for me, but they obviously have to improve the graphics in order to bring people to the game.
Hmm.
They have to update all the old zones. As far as bugs go, to be honest, like I'm sure other people have run into bugs, but me personally, like me playing all over the years, I think I've been like stuck like one or two times. But as far as like bugs go, like I haven't really like experienced that many bugs on like my end of things. I'm sure other people have different experiences, but I think for an indie game that's made by two people, I think this game's been pretty good for the most part. Um, like I said, like if they improve the graphics, if they improve, other zones and bring them up to date in modern Unity, I think that'd be great. But those are really my only cons of this game. I know in the last video you talked to McCringleberry. And we're talking about like like PvP and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
In Project Gorgon, like PvP isn't the focus. There's a
Yeah.
PvP dungeon in Serbial, but I sort of disagree with him. I think if they added like a dueling sort of like gladiator kind of like arena
Mhm.
in Project Gorgon,
Like
sort of
the
like
one
the
in the
casino,
casino? Yep.
sort of like the one in the casino, but it's like optional for people to like go in there and do like PvP.
Mhm.
And like maybe it's not like balanced, but it doesn't need to be balanced in that particular situation because this is a PvE game and the only PvP is happening in this like gladiator style arena.
Mhm.
So with that being said, it could bring people to the game that want maybe that optional PvP,
Yeah.
and but it's not like it's not the main focus of the game. It's just like a gladiator style. Maybe think of like the Rome Colosseum, like kind of
Yeah.
like arena.
And other people could bet on who they think would win. I think that would be the coolest community event if they ever were to add that. You and I can host it, and we'll take bets on people and let people duel. That would be super cool, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like
and
I
sorry, I agree with the fact that you said it wouldn't really mess around with the PvE aspect of the game because it would be totally separate. But sorry, go ahead.
I just you're not. I've noticed in Project Gorgon and I've noticed in other games, you're never going to fully um you're never fully going to accommodate everybody.
Hmm.
But like there's going to be people that are like upset, oh they added some style in here, it's going to ruin the game, it's going to destroy the game. And then there's people that are doing PvP and they're like, oh we need more PvP, we need more PvP. But if they just put the gladiator style like event, like where you could just go in there and you could like optionally like fight against each other and maybe like a gladiator style, and like um people like could like bet on you, and like say I think this person's going to win, I think that this person's going to win. I think that would be enough to accommodate like both sides,
Yeah.
and everyone would win. I mean, sure, maybe people will give the game criticism and stuff in different areas, but I feel like that would be a good enough for the PvP people, and it'd be good enough for the PvE people, and it'd be like a common medium. It'd just be like this optional place where people can like PvP, but the main focus of the game is PvE.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So we're almost hitting an hour. It does not, it felt like we were only chatting for 30 minutes, but we're coming up on an hour already. So let's see. So for the last kind of question, I chatted with McCringleberry about it. Do you think that there's anything that they could do to make it a bit more newbie friendly for when someone first hops in, but something that wouldn't, I guess, compromise the features of the game that make it so unique in that everything is ambiguous?
um I think they should keep it. I think they should keep it the way it is, and where it's like challenging and everything.
Hmm.
But maybe maybe they could make certain things like more like maybe they can make the starting area, the tutorial island, like um more convenient for new people, make it challenging and still make it hard, but like make it like more like easier to like navigate around the island in certain like situations, or even get off the island. I mean, I know a lot of people that play Project Gorgon, a lot of them do get off the island, but there's some that don't get off the island, and there's also people that a lot of people that have never played older MMOs that are like brand new to MMOs. So I think that they should like find like a common ground where they can sort of accommodate the new players, still make it hard and challenging, but also make it hard for like older players too. So like I think it's hard to do,
Yeah.
but I definitely see the problem, because you got to understand like the demographic playing this game. Maybe a lot of them are like old players that came from EverQuest or Star Wars Galaxies, but there's
Yeah.
also new people. There's also new people playing this game that never played those games, and you can still make the game hard, but you should also sort of like help them sort of like get into like the
Yeah.
uh
Get into the flow of the game, I guess. Yeah, I totally agree in that I think at least in the demo island there should be a little bit of hand holding because to think that your whole demographic is or are hardcore or old school MMO players, I think is pretty tough. And even a couple of my buddies that I talked a couple buddies into starting yesterday and today, and who have played MMOs with me over the years who were constantly dying. So it's definitely challenging, but yeah, I think it's tough to find that middle ground between helping people and and not wanting to handhold too much, which I think makes the game great. So cool. Thank you for answering that one. I know that's one of the ones that I find most interesting, and that's probably going to be my favorite question moving forward. So,
I know. Another thing too is I think maybe like you know how like there's the golems.
mhm.
There's the golems in Serbial, with like that you can search stores with. There's I think it'd be cool maybe if like they incorporated the golems, into the tutorial island in a way where maybe the golems, if you like talk to them, they could sort of explain the game a little bit more for like newer players.
Yeah.
In like a way of like where you could like navigate the island and be like, hey, this is Project Gorgon. Like, hey, this is how I get immersed into this game.
Mhm.
But I do agree. Like, I don't think there should be hand holding in Project Gorgon, but I think the tutorial island should have some sort of element of that. Because not everybody playing this game is an old school player, and that's
Yeah.
how you're gonna get both sides into the game.
Definitely. Yeah, I think as long it's tough to, like you said, you can't please everyone ever. It's not going to happen. Never has, never will. But trying to at least cater a little bit with like the PvP stuff we chatted about, with a little more hand-holding at the beginning, I think the audience could definitely be a bit bigger when they release it. But cool. So let's wrap it up. Is there anything that you wanted to chat about that we didn't get to talk about, or anything you think I should add to the question list, or things that you think would be interesting to chat with for future members or for future guests?
I think it'd be interesting in future podcasts for you to like interview players that have more in-depth experience into maybe like the PVE aspect. Like I've accumulated over 4,000 hours in Project Gorgon.
Hmm.
I've done a lot of the stuff, but I think it'd be cool for you to like maybe like interview like people like Amaret, Brakor, Castrum, just for like some of the maybe the tanking aspect of Project Gorgon, or maybe like the healing aspect. People like Zeiss, people like Professor Cat, Zeiss and Professor Cat, the names mentioned here.
Hmm.
These are players that have been playing the game probably even longer than McCringleberry has been playing it, and they have like extreme amounts of like knowledge on builds and the game's ecosystem and everything. And Zeiss is actually like a player like moderator. You can get like a player like if you've been playing this game for a while and you've been helping players, you can become like an official like moderator for the game.
Okay.
So I think it'd be cool to like interview those kind of people and get different aspects and different points of view. And I also think it'd be cool to I know the Merchant Princes, recently over the weekend held that event for crafting, but I think it'd be cool for you to reach out to the head of the Merchant Princes, Lady Marissa, and her husband, because they're really into the crafting side of Project Gorgon, and I think it'd be really interesting to interview them particularly and see like how this game compares to other MMOs, from the crafting side, because there's over like 47 different uh, trade skills in the game, and
Yeah.
there's an economy, with other players, and all the trade skills are interlinked and interconnected in some way. So I think it'd be really interesting for you to interview those players and just have them talk, real in depthly about like trading in this game and how that compares to other games and how that matters in Project Gorgon.
Totally agree. And I do have, I think my list keeps growing between you, McCringleberry, and a couple other people on Reddit and the Discord channels. So I have a list of about 10 people. I have one lined up next, so we'll see how that
Yeah,
goes and hopefully get a couple more people. Yeah, I think more, maybe more specified people like healer, tank, DPS. So I'm sure we'll chat about other guests that I can have on in the future.
yeah. I just want to say real quick that shout out to Castrum. Castrum helped me out with like money to like to help me um, get a level 80 skill, and I still have to pay her back. But she's helped out a lot of players with healing. She's helped out a lot of players with healing. She's one of the best healers in the game. And if you want to learn how to heal effectively in Project Gorgon, reach out to Castrum, reach out to Fennel, reach out to Laramis in the game. Castrum does Bard Priest, Fennel does Bard Priest, Laramis does Pig Priest. I mean, these are some of the best players in the whole entire game for like healing. And healing is so essential, just like tanking is. And on a side note, like Brakor, Amaret, they use staff and shield. These are like the best tanks in the whole server. Um, but yeah, like just getting their points of view on the game from those different perspectives would be like crucial because they really can like not only help inform new players about Project Gorgon and how the Holy Trinity matters, but also give you like viewpoints on like dungeon mechanics at higher levels as well as what Project Gorgon is like from those particular positions and how that
Mhm.
compares to probably EverQuest with its classes.
Definitely. Cool. Well, I think that about does it for us today. Thank you everyone for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We're going to be doing one of these every week. I'm going to shoot to upload them on Fridays. Thank you again, Plaximos, for joining me. If you'd like to check out Plaximos, you can go to twitch.tv/Plaximos and twitter.com/Plaximos, and I will plug both of those down below in the description. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, everybody.